Welcome, Deborah.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. I mean, live streaming from back in our days in China, 2015, 2016 was really this new way of approaching commerce. And on came to the stage Bambuser, and just your approach and your freshness really, I think, enlightening, and a whole new approach in terms of how we think about live streaming, live shopping, and live commerce.
A very common question is, live streaming is such a big thing over in China and maybe in APAC, but it's just in its infancy in the US. What's your response to that?
It has come on a little bit slower than we would have expected, but not having kind of these super apps and easy ways to pay, I think, has been one of the factors as consumers are starting to look at live streaming for, I would say, different opportunities that we saw in China, which is purely this kind of like this entertainment, this kind of thrill, the sport of shopping, and looking more towards community, which I have found to be fascinating. So you're in streams, and you're starting to see the consumers ask for each other's Instagram handles to talk to each other. And that, to me, has been kind of a real game changer in terms of why people go to visit live streams and why it's actually so important to have a regular cadence, right? Whether it's every Thursday night at 7 p.m., which is actually what we would recommend, but to have that regularity where your consumers know that they can come together with each other, because there's a whole community build that we're seeing that extends far beyond the stream itself, and I think is really critical to build retailers' brands.
And you have a great depth and understanding of the Chinese market as well. Do you see any similarities or differences between how this has been sort of adopted across China and, let's say, the US?
So what's been very interesting is this idea around the professionalization of the sales associate, right? And this whole idea right now of like the connected associate, and how do you kind of not only limit turnover, but have them do more, whether it's in your physical store, in the mall, or even from their apartment or home or their backyard, as it might be. And so this idea, right, in China we have KOLs, or key opinion leaders, and KOCs, key opinion customers, but here really utilizing the sales associate, right, who already loves your brand and knows it better than anybody, and for them to be able to be in store, or like I said, wherever they might be, and for them to be able to engage, or if they have time, and to think about how to reward them. Some retailers we work with are doing things like gift cards. And this idea that the consumers engage with an associate who they feel really loves the product. They're not being paid to talk about it. They know it and they love it. That, I think, authenticity has really kind of been very critical. And then the other probably most important thing, if there's one number, right, and of Coresight, right, we're very much about the numbers. The number one thing that you should take away from this and talk about internally, there's a 50% reduction in returns. So if you think about this from a sustainability perspective, it is the number one thing that you should be doing in your organization. And as we know, it's quick, it's easy, it's fun, but more importantly, there's a whole sustainability angle.
Thank you. Another one. So what if, are there like patterns you can see in how retailers decide to adapt and start working with live video shopping?
I would say that it's interesting because for now it's more often owned by the marketing department than anything else, and so I think that what we're seeing is as it starts to become a larger kind of revenue driver, that will kind of change the place in the organization. And there's also the data aspect, right? So you can start to see what people are asking, about, right? Whether it's, if you're a beauty company, kind of different efficacy or ingredients, where something's made. We often recommend, and it's been very fun to have different size models. And so, right, if you, the consumer, right, this goes back to sustainability, if I can see the dress that I want to buy, and I've done this myself on someone, I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work, but can you, what else do you have in that size that's available now? And so this type of idea, and then one thing we haven't seen here, although I hope we will, I actually just talked to a large REIT yesterday, that this idea that this mall as a platform, so that you will have kind of in either it's in your own stores, and like the malls will actually provide, like Bambuser almost as kind of the platform for everyone to be on. And this idea that there is a day, a time, and that the consumers start to expect this. So you're starting to see, I think, it like bubble up. It's just a matter of, right, the consumer, I think, is now asking for more information before they make a purchase. And they do want to touch it, taste it, kind of feel it and all that. But if they have the power of the community to help them make decisions, I think that that is really critical, and they're looking for more information. So another stat to think about, in the US it takes about 4 points to convert. In China it's 12, right? Because there's a lot more intelligence and information, and you're asking a lot more people, right? You're in a stream here, you're over here, you're on WeChat, you're on Douyin, wherever it might be. And so I think that what we're starting to see here in the US as well is there are more points that the consumer is looking for more intelligence and more information, and a lot of that is for a live stream.
It's very interesting. Finally, what do you think in terms of, or what do you see when you look at the data and the research you do about what consumers are buying in live streams? Are there any odd trends, specific trends, anything curious? People tend to believe this is something primarily for, let's say, beauty or fashion or, premium goods. But as we know, we work with a lot of brands. We see traction in most segments.
So there are 2 really interesting things. If you look at what we're seeing in the US, as of kind of the end of 1Q, from a data perspective, and this is not what I would have expected, but that older millennial men are the largest in terms of dollars spent, and they're buying electronics, right? So they're doing actually a lot of research, and they are ending up, right, because there's this idea right in the stream that there is the give and take. And so that has been very interesting in terms of dollars spent, not where I necessarily would have seen it. And then one of the things in China that we haven't necessarily seen come here yet, but I feel like we're on the precipice, is around, kind of food. And I mean that more from, I want to buy Bob's chickens, right? Because I know Bob, I'm familiar with his farm now, I've seen the farm on the stream, and this idea that you start to think about, you're really helping the farmers, right? Because you're starting to brand something that has previously been unbranded and unbrandable, really. And so this idea that, to me, live streaming really takes our whole industry and it brings it to a completely different level because it democratizes information. It also allows us to really kind of seek out what we need. Because going back to the sustainability idea, if we buy something that we love, we're going to take better care of it, right, in the wash. We're going to do a much better job of, kind of even how we maybe think of its, kind of next life. And this idea that we're going to potentially tell other people about this amazing item that we bought, and right, that we're starting to see consumers become, right, KOCs, these key opinion customers. And that I think there'll be more about that next year if I think about kind of the trend from a timeline in China. But I do feel like we're probably early 23, we'll start to see the real breakout from a dollars and cents perspective when it comes to revenue.
Yeah, that's where we try to, cater all the insights that we have collected over the last 2.5 years. Like, we know how to cut certain corners, we know what works, what doesn't work. And I think now is the time to get started. So you have figured out what works for your brand, for your segment, for your industry, when we get mass adoption. Because, please, Deborah, tell me, this is going to be something as important as it is in China.
I think that we're going to see that. I think it'll just be the way that it develops in the product categories. And one thing I also want to, it's been interesting, we've had a lot of conversations in the past few weeks. So, this idea that the consumer also wants to get to know your brand. And they actually really want to get to know your management team behind the brand. And so this idea that, even, right, kind of your CEO being on some of these streams, and I've actually participated in the streams. I am no KOC, by the way. I usually ask questions. I'm like, I'm a research analyst, right? Like, I can ask great questions. I can ask you about the product and whatnot. And in that, right, you can get some great kind of back and forth and like really interesting information. I think having your executive teams, because that's so important to the consumer right now, because for them, right, they're buying a lifestyle, they're buying a brand, and these brands represent them in ways I think that they haven't in the past. And so they're really looking for that. And so I feel like this year we're still seeing, kind of, there's a lot of platform testing going on, trying to figure out kind of how does a sales associate participate. And this, I think, is all teed up for, certainly we're hearing more for holiday. And in an inflationary environment, everyone's trying to figure out how to make it. And if you think about where gas prices are, if the consumer can take one less trip, they can make a better decision, and they can also have this part of a community. I mean, this is like the customer wins, the sales associate wins, and ultimately the company wins.
And you'll have a lot of fun, if I may
That's
add.
the most important part, right?
Thank you so much, Deborah, for sharing these insights with us. And for everyone to know, Deborah will be around and her team as well. So if you and your company would like to figure out more about what Coresight Research actually does and how much they can help you and gain insights and collect whatever you might need to build a business case, make sure to talk to Deborah during the day.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.